Hi, this is Charlie Calvert, and I wanted to talk for just a little minute about using the debugger. Now, when you hear that word debugger, many people would say, oh, that sounds like a very advanced tool. It sounds like something that only advanced programmers would use, or at least an intermediate level programmer. It turns out that's not true. It turns out that the debugger is a really fantastic tool for beginning level programmers to use. And it may sound like it's complicated to use, but actually it's quite simple. And there's just a few basic tricks that you can use to start um, leveraging the debugger in your own programming exercises. And this can move you forward very quickly. It can help you to learn a lot about how to program in a very short period of time and to help you track down the problems you may be encountering in your code. So let's write a program that's intentionally buggy. We'll write x equals 5, and then we'll write int y equals int dot parse. We'll get some input from the user that needs to be translated from a string into some other type, which is our case here. We're reading in a string and we're converting it into an integer with this line of code. And now let's go ahead and perform a calculation. Z equals x times y. So we're going to multiply, in effect, 5 times whatever the user entered. And now we're going to use the CW snippet to display the result. So we'll go result, and here we're going to make a little error. And we'll go ahead and display Z to the user. Now, you're a beginning level programmer. You've written this code. You figure, well, what can go wrong? And you run it, and you enter in a number, say 2. So you're expecting to see 2 times 5 equals 10, and instead you see some format exception, right, going on. And you go, well, what in the heck is this all about? And here's this little option. It says debug, and you click debug, and it pops up all this information, and it takes you right here to this line of code. It shows you exactly where your error occurred. It occurred right here. Okay? So, and it's saying this line of code was wrong. Format exception was unhandled. Index 0 based must be greater than or equal to 0 and less than the size of the argument list. Now, if you know what the error is, that might make sense to you. You might be able to say, oh, I see what I've done wrong. But if you're really a beginning level programmer, that error doesn't quite really make any sense to you. And you go, well, what is going on here? Okay? So here's what you can do to try to fix the problem. You come up here and you say, I want to stop debugging. You could do that by clicking on this item right up here in the toolbar, or you could go to debug and stop debugging. Shift F5 and stop debugging. And instead, this time, we're going to want to debug. So what we do is we have these two options when we want to really get into debugging in a serious way. They're called step into and step over. For really beginning level programmers who are all doing everything right inside their main, all you need to know is this one command, step over, F10. So you choose that and you start your program with F10. Now, up here we can see our little debug toolbar up here. And right now, this is probably a good thing. A good part of it's hidden. You have to drop this little list down to see it. Now it's going off the screen where you can't quite see it. So grab a hold of it. Do you see along here, there's this little, if this happens to you, grab a hold of it right on that dotted line and bring it down here. Now we can see the whole toolbar. There's the continue button, the stop button. Here's the step into. Here's the step over, the F10 button, which is the one we want. So we could press F10, or we could just click on this button, and look what happens. Can you see down here in your code? I'm going to press F10 again. And do you see how we moved from one line of code to the next line of code? We're literally stepping through our code one line at a time. Now, why is this useful? It's very useful if you're not sure how your code's executing. You're going, well, which line of code is executing when? Well, particularly if you've got an if statement or a switch statement, which block is being executed? Which way did it go? Well, you can step through your code with F10 and see, We're not doing anything that complicated right now. Instead, we're just looking at some variables. We can move our mouse under X and see the value of X at this time. Or look down here. Do you see this locals variables? These will all show up by default when you run. If you don't see these windows down here, go to Window, choose Reset Window Layout right here. And are you sure you want to restore the default window layout? And it would set things up just like this automatically. If that didn't work for you, you could go Debug Windows View and show locals here, or autos, which are the two you want the most. At any rate, they're going to show up down here. We're looking in this local window, and we can see that X is set equal to 0. Now, let's step again. Let's press F10. And what happened when we did that was we were switched to the console window, because now it's your chance to enter some input. And we're going to enter the number 2, okay? And then I'm going to press enter just the way I would. So I interacted with my program. For a second I went away from my code. Now I'm back in my program, but I'm one line further on than where I was. And look down here in the window. Y is now set equal to 2. If I hover my mouse over Y here, I can see the value of it. So X is equal to 5, Y is equal to 2. Now right now, if I hold the mouse under Z, or I look down here in the locals window, which shows me my local variables, all the ones that are inside the main method, I can see that Z is set equal to 0. Well, why is that? If X is 5 and Y is 2, how come I'm getting it? Now look at this one. I'm moving my mouse over way over here at the end for just a second there. Well, now it won't. Oh, if I hold it right over the times mark, it shows me what X times Y equals, which is 10. It shows me the result of that expression. So over here I see X, which is 5. Over here I see, well, it's a little imprecise as I do it, but you can see you can often get all those details. But I'm giving you, digging a little deeper than I need to here. So let's just press F10 one more time up here. I'll click on it. And now we've gone one more line, and look, Z has been set equal to 10. So what have we learned here? We've learned how our code executed. We learned that X got set equal to 5, Y got set equal to 2, Z got equal to 5 times Y, which equals 5 times 2, which equals 10. So everything's working perfectly. And yet our program still blows up in this line. Well, let's look at our code here. What could go wrong? Well, Z is set equal to 10. It's correct. This is just a string. There can't be anything wrong. What else is there in this line that could possibly have anything that I could be doing wrong? Maybe it's just the compiler's broken. The language is broken. Isn't that it? It's Microsoft, right? They don't know what they're doing. This stuff is just broken. No, there has to be something wrong. What can it be? There's only one other thing I typed in here. I typed in this funny squiggly little format item. I typed it in. And, well, what could be wrong with that? Well, wait a minute. Whenever I watch my teacher type things in, he always starts with 0. He doesn't start with 1. Wait a minute, you go. And you say, wait, maybe I'm getting it now. And you go, let's stop debugging. And let's run the program again. I'll enter in 2 one more time. And then here's this exception. It says index 0 base must be greater than or equal to 0 and less than the size of the argument list. It's something about zeros and ones. And suddenly a light goes on in your head and you go, format exception? This is a format string. My format item in my format string is wrong. You know what? When my teacher showed me this thing, he always typed in 0 here because this is a placeholder and there's only one parameter and this is a 0-based system. So let's try running the program one more time. I run it, I type in 2, and the result is 10. So now everything's working, right? And we can go back and we solved our problem. We used the debugger to figure out how our program works.